So I gotta be honest with you. I don't know how Superstar's gonna make this happen without his notes.
Who's Superstar? Who are we talking
Oh,
about?
I wonder who Superstar is, Bailey. I don't see you surviving all of this. I think your
I think of
reputation
the
might take
ABBA
a hit
song.
now.
So my nickname is Bailey Superstar Davis. That's my full thing. That's my
No,
alias.
Superstar is your new first name.
It's
Super
big time Bailey superstar.
Big
Yeah, exactly.
time Bailey, folks. Thanks for tuning in. International sensation
Okay, international sensation. Let's start with you then.
on only on TCF.
Yeah, at least for now.
Okay.
You're,
Well,
you're
what's
gonna
your question,
move.
sir?
You're gonna fully move past us. So A, B, or C. If you are the police
Yeah.
and you arrest somebody, do you A, charge them with what they actually did, or B, charge them with a whole bunch of extras? It's just A or B today, so it should be simple for you.
Ooh, I kind of like to get extras on stuff though, like buy one get one.
Oh, BOGO charges.
Yeah. But I would actually go with A. I would charge them for what they actually did. I think that's, if I go to the grocery store and I buy X, Y, and Z, I expect to pay for what I purchased, right?
Well, that doesn't always work these days either, but I feel ya.
Have you seen grocery prices lately? I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm not trying to be rational or anything. I didn't mean to.
Oh,
Good. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sidebar. Nice
Good
to
evening.
have you here.
Good evening.
So I'm
Hello.
Dan. We also have Michael and Ashley and Bailey, a.k.a. Superstar, because he thinks he's all that and the bag of potato chips.
I actually don't like the nickname, but go ahead. I'm leaning into it because I love you guys so much.
think that's kinda
Embrace
the
it,
point.
Bailey.
Yeah.
Everybody has to have some kind of persona here. That'll be yours. It'll be lovely.
Yeah.
I'm the Southern Belle, so
There you go.
yeah. So there
I'm
you
the
go. That's
balding
kind of my
old man
persona.
that shouts into a microphone, and Michael's the weather guy.
that's right.
I can do the
Th-
Dolly Parton thing. How?
This is the panel that you want
Oh.
for any serious legal discussion.
We
Absolutely.
No
we
doubt
will
about it.
almost probably solve your problem.
Notice all the law
maybe.
books behind me. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a blank wall.
I look
we will-
him.
We almost solve your problems. That's what we guarantee.
Oh no, legal disclaimer, we don't solve anybody's stuff here.
I said almost solve.
We are not qualified to even almost solve.
Yeah, this one time we almost
We are
did,
not lawyers.
kind of, and then we didn't. So
Okay, that's contract law 101. I put the almost in the contract. Like, I will almost help you with what you want me to do for you.
Why does
Sign
this?
here.
Why does this conversation remind me of Suits? I don't know why.
well, as long as it's suit
almost
seasons
there.
1 through 4.
There you go. All right, let me get us on track because Grandma TCF has already gone off the rails. She wants to see Ashley do a Dolly Parton impression.
No,
Oh,
I don't know if I can do it on the spot like that, especially when I'm sick.
Work on it for next time.
I will work on it for next time, Grandma TCF. Yes, that'll be my homework.
All right. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, at least to start with today, was my idea, and it's something that's been on my mind for a couple of weeks now, honestly, and that's the idea of things being overcharged when it comes to the criminal system. And it's not just as simple as, okay, you got pulled over and you had this headlight violation or something. The next thing you know, you're arrested and you've got 5 or 6 other charges on top of the civil infraction. And you would think it would be isolated, but the more and more court we watch, it feels like the more and more we see this sort of thing. So I went out and did a little bit of digging and a little bit of looking around. And I want to share 2 cases with you real quick to just kind of maybe set the tone, and then we can have the discussion from there. But back in 2011, there was this guy named Aaron Schwartz, and he was an internet activist, and he got charged with mass downloading academic articles, which is weird, but it was a federal charge. They indicted him on 13 felony
What a
counts.
monster.
Yep. They indicted him on 13 felony counts because they gave him a charge for like each thing that he downloaded.
Okay.
And it carried up to 35 years in prison. Rather than just charging, hey, you did this thing, they gave him a separate charge for each time. They offered him a plea bargain, though, with only 6 months in jail if he agreed to pleading guilty to all 13 felonies. So they hold this big, anvil over his head
Yeah.
and then say, well, we'll plead you down to 6 months, but you have to plead guilty to all 13 felonies. So he'll be a 13 times felon if he goes for it. And then another case, again, this one was at the federal level, just coincidentally, but it was one that caught my eye. And this was a guy named Weldon Angelos, and this was in 2004. He was 24 years old, and they caught him selling a small amount of marijuana to an informant. But at the time, he possessed a handgun. So they charged him with 3 separate counts of using a gun during a crime on top of the distribution, which all added together carried consecutive sentences that got him 55 years if convicted on all counts. They
my
offered
God.
him a plea of 15, which is still really harsh for, selling weed. I get that it's illegal and all that, but 15 years for, being the guy who hands somebody a bag of weed is a little bit much to me.
Distribution.
But Angelos refused. He went to trial. It didn't go his way. He ended up with all 55 years.
Yikes.
So,
Ouch.
with all of that in mind, those 2 examples in mind of relatively simple things that have been overcharged, overdone, and then, the punishments are insane to begin with, and then they try to offer these pleas down, just holding this anvil over your head. This whole thing just kind of bothers me, but I would like to know you guys' thoughts on it, and where you're at with it. But it's something that's just been on my mind for days or weeks now.
I
And
wonder
it really
if
bothers me.
I wonder if we can kind of ease your mind a little bit, because let's say this defendant actually did do this, right?
Which
he was
defendant
found.
actually did what?
Well, he was found convicted. He was convicted, correct?
Are you talking about the second one, Weldon Angelos?
Well, he got in trouble, right?
Yeah, but are we talking about the drug guy
I
or
thought.
the first guy? I gave you 2 examples.
Okay, either one. So when you take a plea, so they took a plea, correct?
No, the first guy took a plea. They
Okay.
held 35 years over his head for downloading material,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like child stuff or anything. It was news articles. They held
publications
35
you were
years over his
saying,
head and
yeah.
offered him a 6-month plea,
Yeah.
and yes, he took that. But Weldon Angelos, they held 55 years over his head because he was selling weed but happened to have a gun with him at the time. And then they offered him a plea of 15. He refused, went to trial, and was found guilty on all counts and got the full 55. His
I don't
life
see
is
it.
over.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't mean to bury the lead. I kind of, I should have delayed it in a better way, but
Well,
he was advised. Here's the thing: an attorney has to, they have to talk to their clients and let them know about a plea, considering a plea. They have to have that discussion. Attorneys are trained to also kind of read the room and see, and they'll look at all the evidence and they'll go through everything and be like, hey, I think you have a really good case. This should go to trial. The odds are I think we'll win. Or, dude, if we go to trial, man, you might get, the 55 years. So I think the 15 might be a good plea.
okay,
And
but
a defendant at that point has a choice. And,
I agree with you, but I think you're missing what I'm getting at here a little bit, Bailey, and that's were these people, and these are just two examples of thousands. These are just two examples that I pulled, and we see it in the courts that we watch too.
Yeah.
Are these people being overcharged? Is it stacking charges on these guys so that there's this huge, again, an anvil over their head with Acme stamped on it that's going to fall on them unless they cop to a plea?
There's
and again,
a
the whole
there's a huge anvil and piano hanging over their head
Yeah.
as they're going into the plea negotiations. Right.
But is that right? Is that just? Is that really what we want out of our legal system? Okay, yeah, the dude was selling weed. Okay. I'm not a fan of it, and it is illegal at a federal level, so I get that. But then they throw a gun charge on top of it, and they take somebody who was just, in the grand scheme of crimes, was this such a great crime? Probably not. Is it worth 55 years? His life's done. He was 24 at the time.
It must have been like his second something or something. It wasn't his first crime. You know what I mean? Like, nobody gets that much time for.
So, you're like pro weed, Bailey. How are you suddenly on the side of putting this guy away for 55 years?
I'm confused.
Because
Are you feeling okay? Did you bump your head?
No, because I'm saying I follow the law, and I'm sorry, I disagree with how Texas wants to do things, but Texas does things the way Texas does, and that's the law.
Is it a good application of the law to be stacking so many charges, especially on lower level offenses? Does it serve society? Is putting that guy away for 55
Boy,
years?
I'll feel a lot better knowing that guy selling weed is off the street. Boy.
Unfortunately, like we said, we don't really actually solve things here on Sidebar. I would need to know a lot more information to be able to answer that question more holistically.
Well, we're talking more in general. Again, we're keying in on this one case, I suppose, because I gave it as an example. But he's actually been in prison 20 of his 55 years now. But we see this in court all the time too.
Yeah.
How many times do we see somebody walk into Judge Middleton's court, for example, and they've been charged with no insurance and driving suspended and all these things, and then they go, but here's something for you. If you act now and you plead to allowing another, we'll just fine you $250 and put it in the city's coffers.
President's Day sale this weekend only.
Well, it's funny because I always call this to me this is like Black Friday justice. So what they do is on Black Friday, so in the weeks leading up to it, what they do is little spoiler alert for those of you that think you're getting a great deal on Black Friday. So retailers, they mark stuff up before Black Friday. Then Black Friday comes around, they're like 30% off. And what they did was they just marked it back down to where it was like in mid-October. And so you think you're getting a good deal. Or what they'll do is they'll throw in some loss leader. They'll be like, hey, you buy this and we'll give you some, $20 gift certificate to something. So you think you're getting a good deal, but it's really not. They marked it up. So it's the same thing here. It's like the equivalent of a guy is speeding, right? He's speeding down 35th Avenue. Then he turns onto Glendale and he's still speeding. Then he turns onto 27th Avenue. It'd be like giving him 3 speeding tickets because he sped on 3 different roads. It's dumb. I have never understood. And then on top of that, they'll be like, yeah, and you also had a taillight out and you weren't wearing your seatbelt and your ashtray, that's not safe. And you had fuzzy dice hanging from your rearview mirror and you can't do that. And your window tint is 5% too much. And it's like, what? Really? To me, it's punitive. It just seems like a way to make a little extra cash. And it's also a way to make sure that someone pleas and they don't go to trial. Because if you're holding that much over someone's head, they're probably going to be more inclined to plea, because the gamble is if you go to trial and you lose, you could be facing all this other stuff. And that's why I hate the stacking of charges thing. To me, it's yeah.
And In my opinion, I don't agree with the stacking of charges for minor offenses as well. Now I said minor offenses. Now, if you're getting up to a more severe charge, then I think that's fair because they're probably going to be in prison for a while anyway. But for minor offenses, I do not agree. I think it's unfair. And holding that carrot over somebody's head, I mean, it impacts their whole future too. I mean, if you're pleading to like, if you're pleading for multiple charges, how does that look on your record? So when you do get out, or if you do get whatever plea you get, how does that impact the rest of your life in regards to getting a job or things of that nature? So there's that side to think about as well.
From my experience watching TCF, most times a lot of charges are pled out. In other words, they'll be like, we'll get rid of these charges, this charge, and if they just plead to 1 and 2, count 1 and 2 or something like that. That's why it's really good to get an attorney when you get into these situations. So they work with the state and be like, hey, look, you can totally do this. And they know what the judge might do. They know the judge might go with probation. Like, come on, do you really want to go through a trial? Like, the state doesn't want to go through a trial. That'll save them a whole bunch of time, and maybe their client knows they're guilty. We're forgetting about that, folks. The client may be guilty and just like, you know what? I'll take a plea.
Well, yeah, I mean, they most certainly may be guilty, but
Yeah.
but
But you're presumed innocent for one.
Yeah.
that and is it justice to throw so many things on top of it? Let me give you another example. You have somebody who's pulled over for some kind of vehicle infraction. Let's say a busted tail light, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
and the driver is combative. They don't want to hand over their driver's license. They're talking back over the case, maybe not an ideal situation, comply, get on with life. It's, but we know there are people that don't. But the next thing you know, we've seen it in the courts that we monitor, all of a sudden they're charged with failure to ID, obstruction of justice, disorderly conduct, if they don't immediately get out of their car, resisting
without violence,
all these things, and all of a sudden they're just, this laundry list is attached to this person rather than the police officer just talking the person down off the ledge.
De-escalation,
which I get, is I'm sure a pain in the ass, but still, sorry, it's your job. And some people are just going to be horrible, but you got to deal with it. But then all these charges follow them into court, and then the prosecutor goes, well, yeah, you've got all these things, we'll lock you up for a year. But again, if you act now,
we're going to give you a gift, even though really the only thing you really did wrong was you had a busted taillight, and we could have just given you a warning. And maybe you were cranky because maybe you were having a bad day and you got pulled over. And I get that police officers' jobs are tough and all that, but I mean, just stacking charges and then prosecutors doing that and then thinking they're giving somebody a gift. I just don't think justice is served that way. And I think it leads to a feeling of a police state. And I don't like to throw that term around. I think that term is thrown around so liberally, but when the shoe fits, right? So again, just like my example of like, okay, I sped down 3 different roads, so I'm getting 3 different speeding tickets, even though that doesn't happen, but it's
actually,
it's the equivalent. I'm sure it has.
All right.
Sure it has.
Often, if I'm not mistaken, if judges actually take all of those kind of charges, like in your example, your hypo, they would be served concurrently.
Yes, but the defendant might not. It is perceived that they'll be serving a long period of time when they're actually
not. But the fines could be higher. And here's the other thing. When you have more charges, if something were to happen in the future, rather than just having the busted taillight, Now you've got on your record, even though you may have only served a minor amount of time or no time and you pled to this, you still have resisting on your record. You still have, disorderly on your record, even though, all of that stuff could have easily been avoided by not stacking those charges. So now you're looking at maybe a more serious case where it didn't enhancements where it didn't even need to happen and it didn't even need to go that way. And I get there are people that do deserve to have punishments, right? This isn't to excuse everybody's bad behavior, right? I'm not here to offer people a free pass just because, you want to be a jerk. But there are just times where something can be resolved very easily. We can move on. We already have an overworked criminal justice system. We already have an overworked, law enforcement. We have overworked this and that. We could really kind of clean up the justice system a bit by making things more efficient by, how about this? Maybe we don't stack 10 charges on somebody for a simple moving violation. How about that?
The time saving, yeah.
Right.
That's another one of my arguments too, Michael, is that it's wasting time pretty much stacking all those charges than having to have a whole hearing just to go through which ones are going to be presented like in a case or in that kind of thing. So
right.
I agree.
Here's something to think about that just came to mind.
Bailey.
Go ahead, Dan.
As
Go ahead.
Bailey
You go
laughs.
first, man, and I'll.
So here's something that just came to mind. So you can argue, and maybe correctly so, that the stacking of charges that we see so often allows for an almost certainty that a larger amount of fine dollars end up in the city's coffers, right? But how much labor time is wasted to go grab those dollars from that citizen? I don't, because you're talking about like efficiency and stuff like that. It still has to be a net negative at the end of the day.
Probably even more
all of
so.
this stuff is expensive.
Yeah, you got to pay those attorneys. You got to pay all the filing and there's just, it stacks. There's
And if you have gobs of money to throw away, like a rich person, they're more likely to go to trial than someone that takes pleas, because they can't just keep paying their attorney and just paying these. It gets expensive. That's
and
why
we see a lot of
they
judges
plead.
often, if they see that someone's destitute, they will actually waive fees, especially if like there's restitution that's owed kind of situations. Like it's like, well, this doesn't actually help the situation. Or if somebody is getting kicked out of their apartment, it's like, okay, well, if I fine them, which I could, this amount of money, it just makes the problem even worse. So we do see that judges make kind of mitigating they mitigate these kinds of situations case by case
Where they can. A lot of
Where
places
they
have
can.
mandatory fees.
Yeah.
where they
Go
can.
to Michigan, one of our favorite places here at TCF. And
Yeah, but somebody mentioned, the public defender's office is really busy. I mean, we see this in like Simpson's court, all these courts where we see these same public defenders coming up, and it's like, hey, so-and-so, on behalf of this person who's walking up right now on my right. All right, can you please state your name for the record? Okay, and these people have been going through file after file after file the night before, getting ready for these guys to try to understand their case, to give them a wholesome and worthy defense that everyone's entitled to, and they're backed up. And so the reason why I was laughing a moment ago, my brother told me this story. He got a little bit of trouble with the courts. He got behind on like some parking tickets, and license was suspended, that sort of thing. And then he didn't appear, and then he got a warrant, and so he finally goes to the city court and meets with the public defender and waits forever, and finally gets in there, and the public defender pulls out his file, and he's like, okay. He's like, all right. And he has court, parent for this. He's like, okay, so this isn't good. He's like, so you didn't show up here, and you didn't, okay, all right, well, that's not good, but it's not the worst thing. All right, well, All right, so what I think we do is we're gonna plea out for like 2 years in prison, just two, and we're gonna go with that. Because this is like your third time just not showing up, and he's like, that gun didn't help with that conviction that you had, and my brother was like, what? I didn't have a gun at that. Yeah, I didn't have a gun. He's like, sir, you think that's the first time I've heard this in my office, Brian? And he's like, my name's not Brian. My name's Steven. He's like, oh, this isn't. Oh, yeah, okay.
Whoops.
And then he pulls up his case, and he's like, oh yeah, this is easy. He's like, yeah, just pay the fines, and you're not gonna get probation. You'll be like whatever. But scared my brother to death because he was like, oh yeah, I think we're gonna go for 2 years. But my point is, public defenders are so busy that it's like they want to like they have to take the whole case together and give their clients the best information. It's like, yes, we can absolutely go to trial. I will do that for you. That's my duty. But hey, with the facts, whether they're stacking or not, here's how I see the reality. I do this every day, and I think we should do this, and you think about it. So I think that's a beautiful system. Is it kind of rushed? Yes. Like in my brother's case. You know what I mean? This PD was so busy, he confused my brother with a completely different person. He didn't, and, it's funny. We can have a great laugh about it, but that's how busy these folks are. And that's how limited time he had to review the case to advise his client of taking a plea. So these guys are pretty backed up.
Well, Bailey, I don't argue any of that. What I'm questioning and what I'm arguing is all the stuff that happens before that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my problem is. I agree with you that, the public defender's office, especially, they're overworked and underpaid and all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about everything that happens before we get to that point. Is it right? Is it just that we see so often simple things or even mildly complex things where it's a clear charge, but then they throw all these other extras on top of it that end up forcing your hand to just take a plea because it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, it does. I think it does force their hand, especially for misdemeanors. I mean, felonies are something different in my head, but in misdemeanor standings, I don't think that is right to do that to people and hold that carrot over their head.
No, and we see it. We see it so often, and it just bothers me. It's not good for the relationship between the government and the public. It's not good for the overworking of the system.
It kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth with the court system, to be honest. But in my viewpoint, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And that's why I don't think someone should be thinking like, I need to take this plea and not go to trial, even though I'm not guilty. It's I feel a certain way about that.
No. If you are not guilty, do not plead guilty.
How did that work out for the one guy who offered a 15-year plea? He didn't take it because he felt that he wasn't guilty, and then he ended up with the full 55 years.
He got penalized.
You can't feel whether you're guilty or not. I mean, if I am guilty of something, I might take a plea. You know what I mean? After I have a conversation with my lawyer, my counsel. That's what a counsel's for. But if you are not guilty, absolutely not. I would say don't take the plea. Go for it.
But how many people do, though? You know what I mean?
The lawyer's going to have to advise you, like, look, all right, but here's what you might be facing.
All right, well, let's go around the board here for a minute. Who thinks that these extra charges are put in place to force the plea process. I, for one, do. Michael?
Yes, I do as well.
Ashley?
Yes, unfortunately.
Bailey?
No.
Okay. You're outvoted.
3-1,
3-1,
son.
we win. Yay! No, it just...
In terms
I-
of misdemeanors. I mean,
Yeah,
felony.
I mean-
in felony charges, yeah.
if we're talking about crimes against children or something like
Yes,
that, you
against
know,
people.
Well,
load it
that's
up all day long. But
yeah.
that's
There's
apples with
there's a
pomegranates.
difference. Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Agreed.
But even in sometimes low end felony cases, I think there's stacking of charges to force pleas as well. I mean, or you stack misdemeanors on top of the felonies. You know, so there's a lot of underhanded stuff that goes on in there, and you know, I get it. We can't have everybody going to trial. The system would collapse if everybody did, but that's just a weird way to get some extra money in the coffers and to kind of force things along, in my opinion.
I concur. But Bailey doesn't, but that's okay.
No.
It's okay.
I don't know.
Especially if that defendant doesn't know, like, the charges will run concurrently, like we were mentioning earlier. That's not usually. I don't know if that's usually discussed. If it's going to run concurrently or not. So
I would assume so. I mean, come on.
maybe,
That has to be discussed with,
maybe,
Well, I'll
but
tell
I don't
you this:
don't know for certain though.
the more court I watch, the less I use terms like "that has to be."
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I agree with you, Bailey, that it's the best system in the world, but I also believe that it has a lot of flaws, and I think the loading of charges is definitely one of them. But
Things would move so much faster if they didn't do that, like we mentioned earlier. Yes.
the best system, but there's a big asterisk too in that we do have too many laws. And I think that in and of itself, and Dan, maybe this is another topic for another day, but I think the one of the problems that we have in the U.S. is that we have 4% of the world's population, and we have 25% of the world's prison population, and there's just so many laws in this country that that's why it's pretty easy to stack charges too, is because you can just throw some random law that almost is never applied. I mean, I've seen some, even just watching TCF, I've seen some stuff that I don't know, that seems very strange, and it seemed tacked on. And I think if we cut down the number of laws that we have on the books and just made things a little bit more streamlined and common sense, do we really need a law on the books that says, hey, you can't have, 6 females living in a domicile in Maricopa County, for example? I mean, do we really need that law? I mean, there's a bunch of laws that we have that we really don't need on the books, I think. But, I mean, again, another topic maybe, but...
Well, it's funny you should mention that. One of the things that we're working on in the background here in the TCF bunker is to do a segment in the near future on our live show where we bring up some weird laws that are still on the books.
Uh-huh.
So stay
Yeah.
Looking
tuned.
forward to that.
Yeah,
See.
that's coming.
That might be
soon
one
to
of them.
Morning Show
I'd
near
bring
you.
up.
I didn't know that one. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's 6 or maybe it's 8, whatever it's. And I last I saw that was still active here in this county.
Do you
I'm
know the
not
horse
biased.
and gun one, Michael?
Oh yeah, we've talked about that one. That's
Yeah.
and some guy actually sued after he got released from prison, and they fought back, but they eventually they gave him his horse and gun.
It's still on the books from back
Yep.
when this was just a territory.
Yep.
I
So,
love it.
and I think after that, then they did go ahead and repeal that, but.
Yeah, no, it's not on the books.
Just
Yeah.
makes things a little bit more confused. I mean, a lot more confusing for everyone. It seems to keep those on the books as well. Yeah.
I mean, I'm as much of a feminist as the next guy, but that seems like too many women in my opinion, but I might be biased.
Well,
you-
all right,
I
on
mean,
that note,
And you know,
yeah.
and you guys understand exactly why.
What a smooth transition into.
Their cycles might align. You
I
never know.
good night,
Okay,
You know
ladies and
how-
gentlemen.
note that Bailey and Ashley are saying these things. Direct your comments to them. Dan and Mike,
Yeah.
whom you might normally think would make those
Sorry.
comments, did not. We were well
Women,
behaved.
you know,
Thank
when you have roommates and stuff, you get it. But anyway,
Send the hate
My
mail
mouth
to
is
the
shut.
send the hate mail to the correct person, please.
Please note once again, I said nothing.
Yeah, me either. All right,
With
Ashley, since you want to talk all of a sudden, which is great, but
hey,
you brought up the idea of talking about probation versus prison sentences because that was something that was on your mind. So let's transition into that. And where did you want to go with that? What were your thoughts? Because this was kind
Well,
of your idea. So.
the overall gist of what I was thinking about is that probation may look like it is lenient to a victim or to people on the opposing end, but it can provide more tangible support to that defendant that's convicted of a crime. So that's kind of where my mind was heading. In jail, you have so many barriers to get through to get treatment that they need, like mental treatment. It could be anything. It could be drug treatment. It can be anything like that. I just think probation would be better in more cases than not, in terms of prison time.
Okay, so your thought pattern on where you want to go with the discussion is you think that there's probably in a lot of cases more value to putting somebody on probation than putting them in prison.
Yes.
Is that a good way to summarize it?
Yes. There is an exception, and that is if they are going to harm the public in terms of like very severe crimes, then I would not put them out on probation. But other than that, yes.
So where would your line be then? For example, Elizabeth
Anything like-
Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes, should she be in prison right now? Millions upon millions of dollars in fraud.
Billions.
Yeah, billions, but not like a physical risk to the public.
Not physically a risk to the public, no.
She's
But-
never pulled a gun on anybody. Should she
No.
be out there on probation but working her butt off to pay back a debt she'll never repay?
No. I think that is warranted that she is where she is. I think
I actually,
yeah.
this is a halfway joke, but I actually wish you would just release her and see how long it would take her to be out in public. Good luck trying to go to the grocery store. Good luck trying to get a job. Like, the mob is going to get you. Like, I'm not for violence, but let's say you're just harassed for the rest of your life.
Never know who you'll meet in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, just like, I mean,
I
don't
don't
get
see-
me wrong. She
I don't
in
see
prison.
a mob going after
ideally.
her.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
She
yeah.
ripped off millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
the
Well.
average Joe, I don't think is going to care.
All right.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see the pitchforks coming for her. I don't necessarily see that, but you never know. I mean,
Yeah.
But if we're talking about probation versus prison, then where do you draw the line? What types of people should be offered probation as opposed to prison? Where, you know,
I think people that don't harm other people. But like you said in the Elizabeth Holmes situation, fraud is harming the public in an indirect way. So I would have to think about that.
Well, how do we define harm? That becomes another question then. If your barrier to entry between prison and probation is harm, then what is harm? And could you argue that the commission of any crime is harm? Because it's still an offense against the public.
I mean, stealing a pack of gum, as Judge Stevens would say, is harm. I mean,
Yeah, in his court, if you've done it like 4 other times, yeah.
yeah.
You might get 2 to 10. You might get 2 to 10 in the federal
What I was
penitentiary.
thinking, my thought process is some people are better suited to being on probation than they are in prison. But I don't have an exact science of who would or who wouldn't be on probation versus prison. But I
Well,
feel
and
like
Yeah.
for the majority, like a lot of misdemeanors, probation would probably serve the best. But like in felony crimes, I mean, Elizabeth Holmes is a felony crime. It would kind of be the latter.
So of course, I don't disagree with you about this, but to me, this is one of those things that has always driven me crazy, because there are certain times where I just think putting people in prison, because just like Dan was talking about earlier, because someone possesses marijuana is
Right.
ridiculous. And coke and all this stuff. And I know, yes, people will say it's, Judge Elmore always is on there about it. It's not a victimless crime. It's not a victimless crime.
Right.
Yeah, okay, cool. But to me, I look at a crime with a victim as something like you go out and you drink and drive and you get into a wreck and you hurt or kill somebody.
Right.
You go out, you shoot somebody, you punch somebody in the face. Having marijuana that maybe you shared with someone else and maybe something happened to them because you did that, or, maybe you guys did a line of coke in the bathroom sink at a club sometimes. I'm sorry, but that to me is just not, it's not the same thing. And to lock people away in the same prison as you have people that do the child stuff and the murder,
Right.
and the other, I just don't think. And then misdemeanors, somebody that makes a terroristic threat, I just don't want to put them in prison. Prisons are overcrowded as is, and I just think it's ridiculous.
And Michael, and that's my concern too. People that have done like minor crimes, they're exposed to the jail way of life, and I feel like that actually,
Institutionalized.
and I feel like
Yeah.
that's actually worse, because they have a more of a chance of reoffending when they get out. So because
The
they are
repeat offender rate, in the U.S. is very high.
and that's also one of my things. Yeah, go ahead.
So
Dan.
you fear the Andy Dufresne effect, where somebody goes in, and in his case, if we look at Shawshank Redemption,
Yep.
he goes in innocent, falsely convicted, but becomes a criminal when he's in the institution.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chances of
Yeah.
reoffending go higher. Yes.
That's a good point. I mean, there's not. I don't believe prison is a place to rehab anything. There's very few. I think that make it out successfully.
And I think there's actually more support outside of the prisons, and more for alcoholics, for anybody that are on drugs, or anybody that has those kind of issues. There's more help. There's not a waiting list as bad as people that are in prisons.
And that's why we have our favorite judges like Judge Fleischer, Judge Boyd, and many others who actually, I think first off, judges have to consider probation first. That's what a judge
Right.
has to consider.
Yep.
But a lot of them, I think, take it the next step further, like what Ashley's talking about, like considering support services. Judge Boyd is famous for always saying, do you need anything else to be successful on this probation? In other words, and then, and she always finishes up, when you get out or whatever, if you have any issues and I'm still here, you can always come to the court.
Yep. Judge
I
Fleischer says the same thing.
It's
I
not on
actually
them.
asked, this was months ago, I actually asked ChatGPT, can I just like go to the court and just approach? Because I said, there's this judge that does this thing to do, and it actually gave me kind of like, yeah, you kind of can, but you got to like tiptoe a little bit. You can do it off docket and you can approach the court and just gently say, Judge, I'm approaching on something off the docket. I'm Bailey. I'm on probation, and I need to talk to you about something. And you sentenced me about a year ago, and I'm running into some issues I want to come to talk to you about. And
Right.
you can, that's your in. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I think the judges do take this very seriously of this probation. It's about number one, public safety, and can we rehab you? Can we kind of get you on your feet, get you out of here? I don't want to throw people in jail. We would hear Judge Fleischer say that all the time. I don't want to throw anybody in jail. That's not what we're here for. That's not what judges are trying to do. We're trying to correct the issue. What's going on here? Is it drugs? What is it?
So you wouldn't be for the argument, Bailey, to show others what can happen if you sentence this guy to prison or anything like that, because that's an argument too. Like, show society what can happen if you do this. And yeah, I don't agree with that either. But in a way, I kind of feel like that's a fine line too. I think society, I understand that society needs to see what happens when you do certain things, but I don't think just pinning it on one person is the best way to do that either. If that
I
makes
think
sense.
I think you could argue that society has become numb to seeing what happens to people when they commit a crime.
Yes.
True.
Because you need only look at this channel to see all of the content that is out there of people doing bad things and paying the penalty for it. I don't know that there's any, well, and any's probably
Argument.
too strong. I don't know that there's as much of a deterrent factor to sentencing anymore. Not deterrent of the public. It might deter the actual person from ever doing it again.
Gotcha.
But I don't. I think people are numb to other people's troubles.
Agreed.
You know.
Especially since like COVID and everything. I
not
agree
to
with that too.
not to sidebar the sidebar, but Jen, it's because people are too busy doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think about consequences if when I step outside the door. I don't understand anything. I can act a fool, and I don't know how to interact with police officers. If you're lucky, you know how to interact with any human being. Yeah, it's a strange world, but we have these laws, and that's why my hair's not on fire about this overcharging thing. Is like, yeah, they probably are doing the overcharging thing, but that's why you get an attorney. They're like, okay, guys, dude, do we really need to do like all of this stuff? Like, why don't we just do this, give them like 8 years deferred? Come on. And
But-
that's what an attorney does. Or again, if the guy's guilty, take the freaking deal. That's a deal of a lifetime. 8 years, and I just gotta be polite and I gotta like mind my P's and Q's. Or if the person is guilty, like, go for it. Like, you can roll the dice, man. Go for it. I'm sorry. Go, Mike. I can feel it, man. I can feel it coming from you.
I just, when you say stuff like, well, that's why you should just go get an attorney, because if you're overcharged, that's why we have attorneys. It's like, yeah, but we kind of wouldn't need as many attorneys if we weren't overcharging people. We could kind of cut out the middleman sometimes, and we could cut down on cost. This is my whole thing about the criminal justice system is, who is benefiting from it is the lawyers and the coffers of certain people anyway, because that's the main crux of the problem, and that's why I think overcharging is the problem, and that's why I think sometimes, prisons, especially private prisons, that's another issue. It's just sort of a sidebar to the sidebar also, is the private prison problem. I'm not in favor of private prisons. I'm not in favor of an incentive, of a financial incentive to have more criminals.
It's
and that's another problem that I worry about too. So I think a lot of this, we could simplify a lot of this if we just cut down on the overcharging, and if we used probation more in cases where it's warranted, or deferred adjudication where it's warranted. There's bad people that shouldn't be on probation.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit here and because I can already hear some people going, this guy thinks everybody should be on probation. No, I don't.
No.
If you see in the chat on TCF Live every day, somebody comes in there with child stuff and they've been convicted or they pled guilty, I'm like, nope, no probation, no deferreds. You've been convicted or you've pled guilty to your 83rd theft, and to me that's like, all right, dude, you need to spend some time in the timeout, because obviously any sort of theft course, which Judge Boyd has the best theft course of them all, don't take stuff that doesn't belong to you. I mean, that's basically her theft course, and that's all you need to know. Yeah. And if you haven't learned it by the 83rd time, you're not going to learn it, and that's when you do need to go to prison, unfortunately.
So, can I ask a question? How do you guys define overcharging? Is it that, let's say I go out and I commit a bunch of crimes, and these are legitimate, and they basically check off every single one, and they're all valid? That's what you have an issue with?
No.
In other words,
No.
Or are you saying they're fabricating? They're just like, oh, we'll throw him with this too, and he'll have to deal with this too, and this is BS, like BS charges? Or are we talking about they're actually going through the receipt from Fry's and saying, yeah, we're going to charge them with the whole thing because, he was
so
kind
an example I would have would be somebody who is being arrested who doesn't immediately put their arms behind their back is charged with resisting without violence, obstruction of justice, disturbing the peace.
Right, they yell the F word,
like that.
Yeah,
where the one action has like 4 charges placed upon it.
And it's silly.
If I was a defense attorney, I would be so happy about that. Give me more cases like this, guys. It's almost like it is a business, guys. Defense attorneys would love overcharging. You know why? Because they're going to be able to they're going to pick up the phone from this dude and be like, hey, I got some trouble. I got pulled out and I didn't put my hands behind my back quick enough, and I would do. He's like, all right, we'll take care of this and we'll get you probably 1 year deferred, and then they're going to charge them like $4,500.
No, it's billable hours. Which,
it's like,
which just kind of continues in my mind to kind of speak to a bit of corruption here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I mean, and that's the whole thing. I mean, that's a part of the scam, part of the grift. The family court's an even bigger grift because of all the let's go ahead and adjourn this, and then we'll have another pre-trial, and then we'll have another status conference and another and it's all just to rack up because who makes the laws? Well, some of the people in the legislature are lawyers. Then who is adjudicating them? Lawyers. And who is representing people? Lawyers. So why would lawyers want to make less laws and make things easier? Because it means less money for them.
Because, Michael, there are problems out there that require laws, and we got to figure it out. And the world is complex out there.
Yeah, some require laws,
one problem
but
require 3 different laws.
I told you that Justice, what was it, Rehnquist? No, I got a different. Anyway, a justice was at Harvard. And down the way was a stand that was selling apples, and it said apples 25 cents. So he's a law student, year 1. He goes to the stand, and he grabs 2 apples and gives the clerk 25 cents. And the clerk's like, you have 2 apples. And he's like, well, the sign says apples, plural. He's like, are you one of those law students from Harvard? He's like, yeah. He's like, get out of here, and let him take the 2 apples. So that's a great little anecdote of like rhetoric and argument and law and contract law and doing the finesse and those little things. So I love that stuff. So that's the boat I'm on, guys. I don't know what boat you guys are on with
I'm on the boat of we have too many people in prison, and we don't need to have that many people in prison.
I
and
agree with you. I don't want that either. But you know what? A lot of these knuckleheads go in there for things like that we complain about every day, where they just can't apparently show up to the principal's office. They don't know how to show
and then
up to
again,
their
I
probation.
get that. But
You know?
maybe some of those people shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place to have to report. And then they think it's BS to have to report. And I get that you have to play the game, but
Michael,
Is
had a
Mr.
probable
Knucklehead
cause.
served by having 7 charges placed on him
Right.
for one incident?
They had a probable cause hearing, which is a very low burden, as we all know, right? It's not a beyond a reasonable doubt, right? It's a propensity of the evidence, so 51%. You know, like he had his due process. And then the lawyers come together and they look at the charges and they figure this out. And if somebody wants to go to trial, like I don't know. Maybe I'm not really trying. I'm not trying to filibuster. I'm not trying to be difficult with you guys. This is really how I'm seeing it, and I'm trying to really keep an open mind of where you guys are coming from.
well,
But
where
this is
I'm coming from too is if that happened to me, Bailey, how am I going to afford the attorney?
Well,
Then I'm going to get a court-appointed attorney. No, listen, just hear me out on this one. Then I'm going to get a court-appointed attorney who's overworked and has 92 cases. And dude's going to want to, he doesn't give a damn about my case because he's got 91 other cases. So, like, he's going to just go ahead. He's not going to really pay much attention to the probable cause. He's going to look it over and go, yeah, probably, they probably got you on this one, dude. You might as well just plea this out. But if I was actually able to afford an attorney that, maybe didn't go to, Southwest Missouri, state of Northwestern Kansas of the Northeastern province of Arkansas.
Knows the difference between 25 cents for apple or apples.
Right. And somebody that actually, isn't wearing a Herb Tarlick suit, maybe I would actually have a chance, but then that requires more money. And based on, and again, it goes back to family court. It goes back all these different courts. Money talks, BS walks.
Well,
and you can say they had their probable cause and all this, but if I've got 23-year-old public defender that just got out of law school that's juggling 90 cases, well, my chances of being successful are down compared to if I went and got, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, so that's where I'm at.
And if you do get your attorney, you want it over as soon as you can, so you plea out.
Yeah. Well, that's what the public defender wants. They don't want to sit there, and they're not going to sit there and go over my case with a fine-tooth comb like somebody that I'm paying $300 or $400 an hour to do. They'll sit there and they'll look it over and be like, hey, man, we're going to get you out of this situation because, you're paying me all this money and I know the ins and outs, whereas, pimple-faced public defender is like, look, man, I got others. My phone's been blown up. I got, 90 cases going on right now. I'm trying to adjudicate. I'm on Zoom while I'm handling yours. I'm like, they're not, it's not justice. Come on, man.
These guys have to swear they're an oath.
They're doing their best, Bailey. They're doing their best, but within the confines of I've got 90 cases. Whereas dude over here that I'm paying $400 an hour is like, hey, man, this guy's paying me big bucks. I'm going to be able to help him a lot better because
like a team of 20 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because and he can always say to me, yeah, I'm not taking your case because, it's beneath me, whatever. I get my veritable pick if I have money to pay for the attorney. I've got my pick of the litter. Whereas the public defender, I'm pretty much stuck like Chuck with whoever I get. Now, maybe I get somebody that's competent. I'm not saying all public defenders are bad, but I'm saying that there's a chance that I'm going to get a guy that, is more interested in shoveling this thing off, and he's just going to say, "Hey, dude, just take the deal, man. We don't want to do this."
Yeah.
So I guess, Ashley, where we're at on your whole prison versus probation
Emerged.
thing is no matter which way it goes, before you even get to a point where you have to figure out between prison and probation, you're already screwed. Does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, pretty much. I think we actually nailed that to, like, we got that figured out. So that's one
All right.
thing.
Yep.
Yay. All
You
right.
got it, Dan.
Well, per our normal arrangement, I don't think we figured out the world here, but that's okay.
Not the world,
Certainly
no.
did not.
Well, Ashley, final thoughts?
I think there's a fine line to everything, and we have to find that sweet line. If we cross it, there are issues, and that's kind of where we are now. So it's unfortunate, but at least we started a conversation about it.
That's fair. Bailey.
Just follow the rules out there. Usually mom is right about things, as you've been being raised. Hello, Kim. Love you. Thank you for watching. Hope we brought you some laughs. And you will avoid a lot of issues in your life. You'll stay out of court. You'll not be bumping into law enforcement and having to be on probation, like I was sort of, kind of, and not having to negotiate plea deals and get a lawyer and spend all this money and avoid all these overcharges, because you might face these sorts of realities, folks. If you just follow the rules, you be nice to people, you won't have to face any of it. But if you do, you just may be featured on Sidebar.
Michael?
Let's eliminate 5 laws a day for the next year. Let's make that commitment. Let's just go ahead and burn 5 laws out of the books, federally, locally, state, city, ordinance, whatever. 5 laws a day for a year, and I bet this country improves tenfold. That's how you make America great.
Don't
Bailey sets his house on fire. Michael, I agree with you, so I'm just going to leave it with that. We have too many laws, and it complicates things, and it leads to overcharging, and then these people have to do these pleas, and then, it's the whole prison versus probation debate, and it all
runs together. Right.
It does. All right, guys, we hope you had fun. We did. We love just getting together and talking about this stuff.
True.
Even when we don't agree, we enjoy, and we hope you did too. We'll be back for this show on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be back live on this channel tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, a half an hour early if you're a channel member. And we hope to see you in both places. But in the meantime, take care. God bless.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.